r/AskReddit. People of Reddit, when is one time you have felt genuine, 100% fear? I was flying an airliner. We were maybe 1,000 above the ground, while on approach to land at a smaller airport. There were thunderstorms in the area and we ended up in a microburst with zero visibility. We got a wind shear warning in the cockpit and started to go around. At full throttle and the nose up we were still sinking at around 400 ft/minimum. Everything seemed to be running in slow motion. Both me and the other pilot were running through our required actions and callouts due to the training. In the back of my mind all I could think about was I can't see the ground and we are falling. I know there is a hill out here somewhere. This is where I'm going to die. The plane got down to around 400 feet off the ground before it finally started to climb. This was the most fear I had ever felt in my life. Damn, that's hella scary. The time I got into bed with my girlfriend and immediately started coughing up blood. Ran into the bathroom and held onto the sink for dear life. Every breath I tried to take I just ended up wheezing more blood out of my lungs. By the time the ambulance got there I had pretty much come to terms that this was how I died. Then it slowed down and finally stopped by the time I got to the ER. Long story short, it turned out to be Hodgkin's lymphoma. Had chemo for 6 months and am cured now with minimal repercussions. Scariest time of my life. When I was trying to sleep at around 3 and felt someone press on my bed. Then bag on the chair started shaking. Then again I felt something on my bed. Finally I had the courage to switch on light and found a giant rat on my bed. Damn. Did you keep him? I think he's the rat's pet now. I was riding my bike home from work along a pretty busy main road. I live in the city. I got to a downhill and started to pick up pace when I noticed a brown snake, which are very deadly, lying across the bike just lane ahead of me. There was a car in the lane next to me and it was too late to stop, but I somehow managed to dodge the snake and kept riding. About 50 meters later, just as I thought I was safe, I heard a very loud hissing and felt something rush past my leg and thought the snake had somehow caught up and bitten me. It turns out my back tire burst, but in the moment I was absolutely terrified. Imagine a snake slithering after you at 23 miles per hour. That would be something. I'm gonna go ahead and choose to not imagine that. I got alcohol poisoning and it didn't hit till I was on a train. I had gone to the train bathroom to throw up, but I was dry heaving and I didn't have water and I could feel myself starting to black out. I was so f***ed up I couldn't even see straight enough to figure out how to open the door and I started to think, oh my god, I'm going to die in a train bathroom with my skirt hiked up. They are going to take pictures of this, oh my god, people are going to see me like this. It was the most afraid for my life I've ever been, not because I was going to die, but because I was going to die alone, in a train bathroom, because I was too stupid to stop doing shots. As I started to see spots, someone grabbed me by the hair, forced a water bottle between my lips, and was like swallow, and I did, and I puked. And I did again, and I puked. And he got another bottle, and did the same. And we went like that, until I held down a few sips, and blood started flowing to my head again. He got off at my stop, and walked me home, waited while I threw up a couple times, and made sure my boyfriend was there, to take care of me, when I got home. The whole time, he was just, bitching at me. Just a non-stop flow of, do you understand how much of a burden you've put on other people? I'm going to be 3 hours late getting home cause I missed my stop making sure you were alright. This is irresponsible. You need to take better care of yourself, learn your limits, and for duck's sake, if you're not going to do that at least wear pants. Just non-stop. He was right, on all counts, of course. That's what I love about Boston. People are beepholes, all of them, but they're assholes that look out for one another. Edit. This is getting intense. Thank you kind strangers, for gilding my story about a kind stranger. Very few people meet their guardian angel in person. When my mom and then 5-year-old brother got in an ATV accident, they were driving slow through the woods and a large dead tree fell alongside the trail, knocking down a smaller tree, which hit them both in the head. Freak accident. My other brother and I were outside filling the pool, and we heard my mom yelling something. I didn't know what it was, but my stomach dropped. We both ran to the head of the trail across the yard, and she was carrying my little brother, both covered in blood. She ran half of that mile-long trail carrying him. They were both in the hospital for a week. Mom got some stitches in her face, and my brother's skull was shattered, requiring surgery and a metal plate put in. He's graduating high school next year and doing well. Edit. Damn, I didn't expect this to blow up. Thanks everyone for the well wishes and cake. This reminds me of another story that happened just a few summers ago. My former college roommate, current best friend, and I are avid hikers and like to do the more difficult hikes in the Greater Tree State area, NJ, New York, PA for those not in the know. We were doing our second trip up Mount Tammany, which is a rather steep and strenuous hike up a mountain with a great view of the Delaware River right on the NJ/PA border. After the difficult climb to the top, it's a slow and steady walk back down to the trailhead that passes by this lovely creek. We were around a mile away from getting back to the car and a few hundred feet away from the nearest other hiker, and we heard a loud crack out in front of us ********. It sounded just like a gunshot. This was the week of one of several large mass shootings in the US that year, so we exchanged a nervous laugh and kept walking forward. We go another 30 yards or so before we heard it again, this time a rapid fire crack, 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 and I felt pieces of wood hit my face. I froze in fear at that moment, thinking some crazy mother ducker brought an R15 to this fairly well traveled hiking trail and is going all Viet Cong on us. Then my friend points to my left to this giant pine tree. It had rained a duck ton that spring summer, and the outcrop that the tree had decided to make its home had eroded away too much to support the weight of the tree, so the tree had started to lean, then buckle under its own weight right down the middle. We stood there watching as large cracks formed at the base of the tree. A crowd had started to form watching it all go down with us. Eventually gravity won the day, and the crowd of 20 hikers and us watched as this 100-foot tree crashed down into and over the creek to our left. Luckily no one was hurt, since it fell away from the trail, but before I knew that it was a tree succumbing to gravity, I for certain thought we were going to be the victims of a woodland mass shooting. I was on a 360-degree roller coaster, and you go around and around, but it got stuck at the very top and the ride shut down for 5 minutes, so I was upside down, and I was very little, and it was terrifying. This happened to my brother and grandparents. I was too small to go on the ride. I love roller coasters, but those kind still freak me out. I was 6 years old and went to take a leak. I was at my grandma's house in a small village in India. The bathroom was an outhouse. Just as I was about to start, I noticed a cobra hissing at me. I ran like hell. Now that is something to be terrified of. I'm sure there are no hospitals near a small village. The morning of my mom's wedding. Everyone relaxing, eating breakfast, clothes everywhere, cousins running around. All of the adults are on their porch chilling. I hear my daughter screaming. I run in the dining room. There were clothes draped over the back of a dining room chair. The clothes had a metal coat hanger on them. She had gotten the hook of the metal hanger under her eyelid. I grabbed the back of her head and slowly pulled the hook out. Put a little ice on her eye for a bit. Luckily, it hadn't hit her eyeball at all. Jesus Christ, that's horrifying. Glad she's okay, and you had a steady hand. I used to measure roofs for a solar company. One time I went up on a very steep roof of a 2-story house alone, and without a harness. This roof plane was too steep to walk, and the shingles were old and crumbling, so I had to crawl, so I didn't slide down towards the edge. After about an hour of crawling around, the sun began to bake the shingles, so they were too hot to touch, so I decided to bug out. As the roof was too steep to walk, the only way to the ladder was by scooting on my butt with my feet pointed towards the edge. Every time I skid toward the edge, my heart exploded in fear because it was hard to stop from moving. I had to use my hands to slow myself down, and they were getting burned. All I could do was to rub my palms on my legs to transfer some of the heat, but they were being scorched. Imagine putting your hand on a hot frying pan full of grit. I was completely alone in a faraway town with no one to call. It took forever to get to the ladder, and by the time I did I was shaking and drenched in sweat. When I finally got back to the ground, some people came out from a nearby house and said they saw me and were ready to call 911. I had burn blisters on both palms, and I never went on a roof like that again without a helper or PPE. I guess you found hot shingles in your area then. I've posted this before, but anyway, buckle up, it's a long one. We used to go sailing in the BVIs for summer holidays when I was younger. One evening we were anchored in a bay with a party boat of teenage Americans nearby. After some alcohol, starting a water fight seemed like a great idea. At some point during the ensuing chaos I ended up kidnapped and held as a hostage on their tender little motorboat for getting from sailboat to shore. They decided to drive me out to sea, and once we were thoroughly out of the bay they started joking about tossing me overboard. Drunk me is not smart. Drunk me thought the best response to this joke threat was to stand up and yell, "You can throw me overboard if I jump out," which I promptly did. They laughed and drove off. I was left floating in the middle of the sea about half a mile from shore in the pitch black. At first the alcohol stopped me from panicking, and I decided to just swim back. Half a mile isn't that bad, right? Now my brain was beginning to wonder what was swimming around beneath me, but I was mostly calm until something bounced off my leg. This is the point at which I need to introduce you to the villain of this story. You see, usually the BVIs has lovely safe clear waters. However, once every 4 to 5 years they get unusually high numbers of moon jellyfish. Of course moons aren't scary at all. They rarely sting, and when they do it's not even as painful as a nettle sting. They really weren't the problem. It was the creature that used them as a food source that was the danger. Known colloquially as the stinging cauliflower. They were purple balls of pure evil. In our marine life books they were the only jellyfish that got the same danger/pain rating as the man-o'-war jellyfish. Earlier that holiday a young girl from another boat got stung while playing on the beach. We heard her scream from about a quarter of a mile out the bay at anchor. She went into anaphylactic shock and almost died. Side story, the Vinegar and talcum powder we had stocked for jellyfish stings apparently saved her life according to the emergency responders, because we zoomed it over when we heard the mayday on the radio. Anyway, back to my story. There I was half a mile out from shore in the pitch black with no idea if these kids were going to come back and get me, or if they would even be able to find me again in the dark, since I had no idea if I was drifting with any current. A moon jellyfish had just bounced off my leg, and where there are moons there were always cauliflowers. I was pretty certain if I swam into one and got stung, chances are I wouldn't be able to stay afloat and I would drown. I start to feel genuinely sick and scared, struggle to keep my breathing under control, etc. But there's nothing to do except swim and hope to high heaven I don't hit one. So that's what I did. It was over 15 minutes before the shitheads came back to get me. By this point the panic and swimming had turned my muscles to jelly, and they had to literally haul me back into the boat. I never told my family or friends on the holiday, didn't want to ruin their fun. I just quietly told folks I was tired and went to bed. To this day I can still taste the salt in my mouth and feel my heart rate and breathing increase when I tell that story. Too long, didn't read, I'm a stupid drunk, and jumped in jellyfish infested water in the middle of the night and got left there and tried to swim back. Am lucky I'm not dead. Wow, you made it to the end. Thank you for watching, mate. Smash that like button and subscribe for more daily content.